Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It is over 100 degrees in Denver this week.
It's so hot.
It is so ridiculously hot. I get so hot and bothered so quickly in the heat.
Same. I just got back from a run and it was supposed to be a recovery run, which means taking it real easy and slow. And it felt really hard, which is never a good sign.
Not good.
No. And I was going slower than normal, but still the heat just makes it unbearable.
We did what a lot of people in Denver do when it gets too hot, is we went up into the mountains for a night and went camping, and we were with all the babies.
Oh my gosh, my heart is so full after that.
We were with two of my best friends from preschool and elementary school, which is so great. They both live out here. Got up into the mountains for a night, camped, being around one tiny baby and one little kiddo.
Almost 2-year-old. It was so fun to be around both of them. The toddler we spent the whole night with. A toddler sleeping in a tent is so impressive. Our friend Amanda, for her to camp with her toddler is also super impressive because it is a lot of work. For you and me to get out of the house for a camping trip is a ton of work. The amount of stuff we have to pack, making sure we have scout stuff, making sure we have everything for ourselves. And now you add a toddler to that equation and you just need to make sure you're meeting their needs the entire time that you're there. It's just insane and amazing. I always give props when I see parents with their kids out there because I hope we're doing that one day, but I know how much work goes into it. And I say I know, but I don't really know because you don't know till you actually do it.
That's exactly right. It gives me a lot of hope though, especially to see two of my best friends who I grew up with. Jen had her tiny baby who's just a few months old out on a hike. I think I have this fear that once we have kids, that our life is going to be over. And I think to a point it is true. The life we live, it's going to be over. But to see friends have their kids and still be able to do the things that they've liked to do before is really cool to see.
I agree. I got a taste of having a toddler on my back in one of those carriers for
a hike.
The first part of the hike, and that is no joke, having extra weight on your back like that. I was so scared I was gonna fall and crush her, like if I slipped forward. I loved just getting to talk with her throughout the hike, and we were looking at all the different flowers and looking for animals, and they're at an age where she sees water and she's saying fishies and just knows things, and I think that's such a fun age. And then with the baby, getting to hold him while we were at the pizza restaurant for lunch, I just love being around all the kids.
Yeah, you're definitely ready. Like your maternal instinct is on.
Yes,
right
it
now.
is.
A little scary for me, but also I love to see it. I'm excited. I'm excited for potential babies in the future. We're not making any announcements here. We're not pregnant. We didn't do anything yet, but seeing moms crush it, knowing that that could potentially be us one day is really inspiring.
We talk about moms a lot on this podcast because more and more you see moms crushing it in the Olympics or crushing it at the marathon trials, and women in the league who have babies take off a year and come back fit as ever and are crushing it in, whether it be soccer or basketball, it doesn't matter the sport, all over. More and more you see mothers just crushing it out there. We watched the ESPYs this weekend and Serena Williams made a comment, LeBron wants to win a championship with his son. Well, I won a championship with my daughter in my belly. Like women are just incredible. Last week, we talked a lot about the Olympics and what the Olympic Committee has been doing to make it more equitable for women and try to increase the participation for women. This Olympics, they're taking it even a step further. I think this is really cool. So why don't you tell us about it a little bit?
Allison Felix, 11-time Olympic medalist, is part of the Athletes Commission on the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, which we talked quite a bit about last week. She partnered with Pampers to create a nursery in the Olympic Village. This will be a nursery for people to nurse their babies during competition, and it will be designed for children in diapers. It will provide a calming environment for a breastfeeding space, a play area, and a changing facility. For so long, there was this idea that once you had kids, you had to stop playing. You were done. It was time to retire. And I think there is still some of that in the sense that if you want to continue to have children, everyone that yes, every time you have a baby, there's going to be maternity leave involved. There's going to be some kind of comeback to get back to where you were or to get back to a new version of you. However, you can have kids and still compete at an insanely high level with the proper support around you. The Olympics taking this on is saying to everyone, people who have kids are welcome here. You can do both. Whether you choose to have kids, whether you don't choose to have kids, I don't think it makes you any more or less of a person.
Correct.
However, I think having options to support mothers is always a great idea.
I think it's awesome. Was super pumped to see that. It's no longer, I have a kid, so I need to retire now. And I think that's so incredibly important. So good for Allison Felix, good for Pampers, great for the Olympics. Excited about that. And just to see the progression continue forward is awesome.
For Allison Felix to be able to give back to the sport in that way, to give people something that she didn't have when she was competing, I love that. You're making the game better for the people behind you, and I think that's super powerful.
That in itself is a huge highlight, and we do have more highlights this week, so let's get into the highlight reel.
Ooh, Wimbledon. It was so good. I want to get into two matches. So the semifinal between Jasmine Paolini and Donna Vekic, and then the Wimbledon final between Jasmine Paolini and Barbora Krejcikova. So let's start with the semifinal. Jasmine Paolini, Italian, number 7 in the world, versus Donna Vekic, who is number 37 in the world. Vekic was dominant in the first set. She beat Paolini 6-2. Jasmine Paolini is just a fighter. She is so fun for me to watch. She is quickly becoming my non-American favorite. She's 5'4". I don't even think she's 5'4". I think she's smaller than that, but she says she's 5'4", and she's just this ball of energy, and she scraped her way back to win the second set 6-4. And so now it's 1-1 in the semifinal. They move into the third set, and Paolini is just pumping herself up. You can tell when an athlete is locked in, and she was so locked in. And then in comparison, Vekic was just clearly upset. She had cried multiple times during the match. Her arm was hurting. She couldn't get the ice pack she wanted. It was a little bit messy, but she just kept fighting and just kept sticking around. And the third set is 6-6, and it goes into a tiebreaker. How tiebreakers work is that it's the first to 10 points, and you have to win by 2. So it's not 10 games where you have to play all of the points. It's just point, rally points, and you have to win by 2, and it's the first to 10. Paolini ends up winning the tiebreaker 10-8. They both fought so hard. It kind of makes me a little bit mad because in tennis, they are like, wow, we wish both of these women could have won this match. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't want a tie.
No, absolutely not.
But they both did play incredibly hard. And I'm like, no, we want one winner for the match. And yes, you feel bad for the other person. And I think that's what's great about tennis. People watching want to see a great match more than anything. So even if the person winning is the person they want to win, they want to see a good match. So they'll continue to cheer on for the person who is losing because they just want to see something great happen. But Paolini comes out with the win. I think it really showed her that she didn't have to play her best. In the beginning, the first set, Paolini did not look good at all. But it showed that she could come back, and she had this really high belief that she could come back, and she came back and won. This was the longest semifinal in women's singles, and it was the best match that I've watched this season. Hands down the best match I've watched this season. We get into the final. As I said, it's Italian Jasmine Paolini versus Barbora Krejcikova from the Czech Republic. She's ranked number 32. And I'm rooting for the curly girl. Jasmine Paolini has this curly hair. I'm always going to root for the girl with curly hair. And as I said, I'm just becoming a huge fan. Krejcikova won the first set. And right after she won the first set, she won it 6-2. Paolini takes a bathroom break, which is really just a way for the player who takes a bathroom break to regroup, to kind of play a little bit of mind games, just have the other person sit out there on the court and kind of think for a little bit, break up the momentum.
I was going to say, I think that would be a big mind game.
Yes.
If I'm the one sitting on the court after just winning and I have momentum, I'd be like, are you kidding me right now? I don't know if you know this or if there is a rule. Is there a rule for how long that break can be? Or, I mean, someone could be puking or, having severe issues out there. So I wonder if they could do anything about that or put a rule on it.
I think there is a general time limit. I'm not 100% sure, but I also think there could be like medical breaks and those can be longer. And so I think it depends on the situation. If she took a bathroom break and then said, actually, I need medical attention, I think she could have extended it longer. She didn't do that, but I do think there are some parameters, but they kind of push it a little bit. Like, did she actually have to go to the bathroom? Who knows? Did she probably go into the bathroom and take a look in the mirror and say, get your shit together?
Yeah,
probably.
Maybe she was about to have a mental breakdown and it wasn't even about the other person. It was like, get it together.
That's exactly right. Paolini comes out of her bathroom break and she takes the second set. She wins it 6-2 and pushes into a third set. So after the second set, Krejcikova is like, I need to change my outfit. So she takes a break, leaves Paolini out there on the court, comes back. And I think it just points, like, these breaks that they take, it points to how mental this game is. I think Serena Williams said tennis is 70% mental. And I believe it because it's a game of momentum. It's a game of trying to pump yourself up one and then trying to take advantage of when you think the other person is down. There are so many mental games that happen throughout it. We head into the third set and Krejcikova takes it 6-4. She had two other chances to take it in the third set and Paolini just kept fighting back. And I was like, oh my gosh, is Krejcikova going to just lose it here? And she finally got the third championship point and won it 6-4. She won the French Open in 2021, but she has been battling a back injury. Her record coming in to Wimbledon was less than 500.
Wow.
She had been having a really difficult season. She comes in here and she wins Wimbledon. She is the 8th person to win Wimbledon in the past 8 years, which means anyone can win Wimbledon.
No one's been winning it twice in the past 8 years. That's crazy.
And no one has like a firm grasp on grass.
I wanted to talk about the grass. Watching these athletes play on a grass court, just adding a different type of ground.
Yes.
Grass I associate with soccer. How the heck do you play tennis on grass?
I know.
When I watch some of the players like slide and the way they have to use technique and the way their feet move on it, it just freaks me out because I'm always worried about injury. But it's really incredible how they just adjust to the different types of, I guess, field they're playing on.
And they use the grass to their advantage in some ways. Like their ability to slide, they don't have to take the extra step if they can slide to get there.
And it's a little more technical, I think, because the ball does not move as quickly on grass as it would like regular court.
And Wimbledon is always just so much fun to watch. So Krejcikova comes out with the win. Jasmine Paolini moves to number 5 in the world. She was 7 going in, and she just continues to have this amazing season.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because you mentioned Krejcikova was under 500 going into the season, and we've been watching the Sprinter documentary on Netflix. With sprinting, obviously time is a big thing. With tennis, wins, but it doesn't matter like the little wins or what time you have in one competition.
Yeah.
It matters how many medals or how many championships you have. So for this, yes, she was 500 going into the season, but now she has Wimbledon under her belt.
And now
like,
her
it
name
doesn't matter.
Her name is etched there forever.
Right. So it's just interesting because you can have 100% record going into this and not win it, and you're not going to be looked at as highly as someone else.
You're
so
not in the
just
record
crazy.
books. Yeah. What do you have for us this week?
I want to talk about WNBA. Indiana Fever defeated the Phoenix Mercury this past week, 95-86.
I'm so glad we're talking about the Mercury.
When you first think about this game, you would think, how the heck did Indiana Fever beat Phoenix? It is very important to say that Phoenix is down a lot of players right now due to injuries. Diana Taurasi has been out since July 3rd due to a lower leg injury, and they're not really revealing more details than that. And obviously with the Olympics coming around, I think they're trying to be very hush-hush around. Is she going to play in the Olympics? Is she not? Hope she gets to, because in reality, at her age, this is going to be probably her last chance. So that just thinking about her. Then you have Natasha Cloud out due to a left knee injury. Sugg Sutton is out due to a right hamstring. Charisma Osborne, lower left leg injury. And then Brittany Griner got hurt in the second quarter of the game and had to sit out the rest of the game. I'm not really sure what happened. It looked like her groin she got jammed into. So again, another Olympic player. At this point of the season, even if it's not a huge injury, you're not going to go back in the game because you need to be ready for the Olympics.
Yep.
All that being said, Caitlin Clark did start off the game extremely strong. She had 7 assists in the first quarter. You could just tell how fired up the team was around these assists.
Yeah.
They were just all playing really well together. We talked about this before when Caitlin Clark had the triple-double. 13 assists, that doesn't happen if my teammates don't make plays on my passes. So once again, team is playing really well together. Caitlin Clark ended the game with 20 points and 13 assists, which resulted in her 5th straight double-double. So we've been talking about Angel Reese a lot and her double-doubles. Angel Reese double-doubles have been around points, rebounds. A lot of Caitlin Clark's double-doubles are points assists. Both are extremely impressive. She also tied the Fever franchise record with her 13 assists in a single game. So one more and she's beating that record.
Wow. This was really a team effort. And so I am struggling a little bit with coverage because we watched this game and I would say 90% of the time they were talking about Caitlin Clark.
It's
true.
It
became very frustrating because we're going to get into Kelsey Mitchell. She ended the game with 28 points. Aaliyah Boston and Alyssa Smith also had double-doubles during this game. Aaliyah Boston was creating passes that were amazing to her teammates. And it is a little frustrating to me. Caitlin Clark is amazing, and she's an amazing rookie. People who are covering this game, who should know this game, should also be talking about the other amazing players on both teams who are also doing incredibly well, whose stats are, you could argue, are better than Caitlin Clark in this game. And they're not mentioning them as much. And it's just so frustrating to me because we have all these new eyes. Everyone new who's coming in to watch the WNBA already knows Caitlin Clark's name. So are they being told by their producers that they have to spend a certain amount of time talking about Caitlin Clark? Or can you talk about the other players so that these new viewers can hear different names besides one name over and over again?
We talked about it when we were watching. It is very interesting. And I don't know what they're being told, but it is very obvious that is what they're talking about.
I'm like, there are multiple Olympians on Phoenix Mercury. And Clea Copper finished this game with 36 points. She scored 20 of those in the fourth quarter. What are we doing? We're not saying her name? I just don't understand.
You mentioned Aaliyah Boston had a double-double and Alyssa Smith, so wanted to talk about their stats a little. So Boston added 21 points and 13 rebounds. So that was a huge game for her. And Alyssa Smith had 14 points and 10 rebounds. Absolutely team game. And I said they were all, you could just tell the energy at the beginning of the game. Everyone was fired up. The Indiana Fever, and I understand Phoenix Mercury had a lot of people out. The Indiana Fever still has to come and play. Yep. And they are looking pretty good right now.
Yep.
And we talked about, like, it's going to be interesting going into playoffs. We're a little more than halfway through the season. Who's going to continue with the momentum? We have a few more games for each team coming up, and then we're going into the Olympic break, which can make or break teams. So it is a very interesting year.
I wonder how this break is going to be helpful or not. And we see Indiana Fever now hitting this momentum. Does this break help them to get some much needed recovery that everyone needs? Or are they thinking as a team, oh, we're just hitting our stride. I wish we didn't have this month-long break. I wonder how they feel about it.
I'm not sure how I would feel. I guess it really depends on how tired these players are and who needs a break and who doesn't. But at the time of recording, the Mercury are ranked number 6 in the league with 12 wins and 11 losses. And Fever is right behind them, ranked number 7 with 10 wins and 14 losses. So they're in the middle of the pack. Like I said, it could go any which way. We'll see. People have to stay healthy. There's a lot of players hurt right now. So do they come back after the break more healthy and then they go on a run? It'll be interesting to see. And with that highlight, we're going to segue right into our deep dive, and we're going to continue to talk about the WNBA, specifically the rookies, because this really gets people fired up. Last week, we had talked about Angel Reese and her double-doubles, and we had thrown it out there that she could be in the running for Rookie of the Year. To our TikTok followers, there have been some comments on there that I'm like, hold the phone. People need to calm down, because we will share a lot of stats, and Angel Reese very much well could be Rookie of the Year. Sometimes I look at these things, I'm like, am I crazy? What better way to dive into things than look at stats and provide the stats directly, because people are out of their minds sometimes and just like to hold on to this certain idea and run with it and just go at it with each other. So I think it's a great time halfway through the season to talk about rookies and the way too early predictions for Rookie of the Year.
And we posted on our Instagram who's your Rookie of the Year right now, and it was split half and half. Half of our listeners who responded said Angel Reese, half said Caitlin Clark, and we actually had one person respond and say Danielle Brogan. Did you see that?
I did not. Who said that?
Erica.
Thanks, Erica. Love you forever. I knew I could count on someone there.
Erica is Danielle's best friend.
I didn't even see the responses come in for that. I literally thought no one was responding to us and I got really sad.
Danielle.
I guess I don't know how to operate Instagram. Thanks, Erica.
Gosh.
And thanks to everyone else who played along.
You just didn't see it?
No, I was looking in the messages. I was like, wow, just no one responded to this.
God. We had many responses.
Oh, cool. Okay, that makes me feel better.
All right, let's get into
this. We're going to talk about quite a few rookies today. Being a rookie is not easy at any level. We had so much fun watching the college season this year. And a lot of these rookies, I just feel like when we were watching college, I've been following these players for years and years and years. Aaliyah Edwards, for example, because I always talk about how my dad is a huge UConn fan. So naturally, I follow UConn. And Aaliyah Edwards, for years, I'm like, how is she not a senior yet? These players just seem so good and they've just been in college, and to see them in the league and how they've been playing, it's just super fun to see and talk about. To start, we had mentioned that we're about halfway through the WNBA season. Regular season games, each WNBA team as of 2024 will play 40 games. Yep. So every team in the WNBA plays the same amount of regular season games. At the time of recording, it will be more when we release the pod, but at the time of recording, each team has about 25 games under their belts to date. To think about what makes a player so good, a lot of people like to look at scoring because scoring is such an obvious stat. It's to your point, it's fun to watch people score. That's how you win games. There's so many other things that go into it, right? Want to talk about one of the not so obvious stats that is really important to look at when thinking through best players. And this stat is overall efficiency. So how do you come up with efficiency? You take points plus rebounds plus assists plus steals plus blocks minus missed field goals minus missed free throws minus turnovers. So you take all your, let's call it positive stats, because you're taking, and it's not all offense, which I appreciate because you have steals and blocks in there. So rebounds is both offense and defense, but you have both. And then you look at missed field goals, because how many are you taking minus how many, right, are you making? So missed, and then missed free throws and turnovers. So when you look at that, that's like a pretty good equation right there. It's really looking at the full game, which I think is great.
Who are the top ranked rookies at this time?
I'll name a few here. Caitlin Clark is ranked number 1. If anyone needs a reminder, she played for the University of Iowa and now is on the Indiana Fever. Her efficiency score is 19.4. Angel Reese from LSU, who is currently on the Chicago Sky, has a score of 19.0. So just a 0.4% off.
And by the time we release, it could be different.
Right. Camila Cardoso from South Carolina, who also plays for the Chicago Sky, is ranked lower at 12.1. And she missed quite a few games this season due to injury.
Yeah, and you can see the disparity, right, between the top 2 and 3 with Camila Cardoso.
Aaliyah Edwards from UConn, who currently plays for the Washington Mystics, has an efficiency score of 11.7. I had to bring in Cameron Brink. Unfortunately, her season is over because she tore her ACL, which really sucks, but she was playing really well prior, really well.
When we were talking about it, I said she's making a Rookie of the Year run, and it's just so unfortunate because I think if she was still playing, she would be in this conversation.
Yep. Cameron Brink played for Stanford and is on the LA Sparks. And this is current rankings. Her rankings is 11.3. So it's still in the top 5, regardless of her not playing anymore. Talking about active players, Rakia Jackson, who played for the University of Tennessee and is also on the LA Sparks. And her efficiency score is 9.4. So from Caitlin Clark, who's number 1 efficiency at 19.4, number 6 is 10 points lower, just to give an idea. Clearly, Angel Reese with a 19.0 and Caitlin Clark with a 19.4 are, at this time, in the running for Rookie of the Year, without a doubt. You can't even deny that fact.
So let's look at their stats more closely head to head.
I wanted to focus on a few different stats because, yes, you look at efficiency, but I think it's also important to look at stats across the board. A lot of Caitlin Clark's and Angel Reese's stats are very close.
Yes.
So we took a few out of the overall stat line. Overall minutes played per game, Caitlin Clark plays 34.9 minutes a game, Angel Reese 31.5 minutes a game. Points per game, Caitlin Clark 16.8, Angel Reese 13.5. Field goal percentage. So out of the shots they're taking, how many are they actually making? Percentage wise, Caitlin Clark's at 40.3 and Reese is at 40.2.
It's insane.
So close. Field goals made. This is per game. Caitlin Clark 5.1, Angel Reese 4.8. Free throws made. They're both at 3.8. Steals per game. They're both at 1.5. Blocks per game. I thought this stat was interesting because Caitlin Clark is not a forward. She's leading Reese with 0.9 blocks per game and Reese has 0.4. And then efficiency again, 19.4 for Clark, 19.0 for Reese.
I mean, they are neck and neck. Is there anything that is like separating them from each other?
There are a few things that definitely set them apart in different stat lines. Rebounds. Angel Reese is leading. She has 12
Obviously.
rebounds per game.
Yep.
And Caitlin Clark has 5.9 rebounds per game.
And they play different positions, so makes sense.
Assists. Caitlin Clark has 7.8 assists per game.
Yep.
And Angel Reese has 1.8 assists per game. Turnovers per game. Caitlin Clark has 5.5 and Angel Reese 1.8. There's a lot of stats there. I don't expect everyone to dive into all that and understand, but I think they're so important to mention because you can't deny a stat line. When you're looking at who is the best players in the league, most of the time or all the time, it comes down to voting.
Yeah.
But we can only hope that people are looking at these stats. And right now, given that these players are two totally different positions, it's really hard to put them head to head.
And what I see here is that they're similar in so many ways, and then they really excel at their position. So yes, Angel Reese is getting more rebounds because that's what her position is made for. And yes, Caitlin Clark is getting more assists because that's what her position is made for. If you put them head to head, it's especially looking at their stats, it's like, whoa, this is incredibly difficult to look at.
When you're thinking about greatness, right, and great players, it doesn't matter who you're talking about. When you think about all-time greats, at the end of the day, how many championships did someone win? Who is winning games? Because you could be the all-time leading scorer and not win a single game. And what does that say about you? It does not matter. So I want to talk about that a little bit too, because if I'm going to give my way too early rookie prediction of the year, I need to consider all of these things. Next thing I looked at is games won overall. Chicago Sky, which is Angel Reese's team, is currently 9-14, and Indiana Fever are currently 10-14. It's just so crazy how aligned they are right now.
They're just wildly matched up. Did Dawn Staley say this? The team that makes it to the playoffs is the team who's going to have the Rookie of the Year.
She did say that.
And we're only halfway through. And so we're going to make some predictions now about our way too early Rookie of the Year. So who do you have?
One more thing I didn't mention and another thing I looked at because their overall records are way too close. So then I looked at the record between the games Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky played. And the Fever is currently up 2-1. I just have to pick Caitlin Clark. This is not because I like her more than Angel Reese. It's not because I'm swaying one way or the other just based on whatever bias or who I like. It's strictly, I looked at every stat I could possibly look at. At the time of recording, I cannot deny that she is slightly over Angel Reese in the stat lines. I think they're both just going to get better as the season goes on, and it's going to be interesting. And I think it can go either way, but Caitlin Clark is my pick. How about you?
So if I were to pick a Rookie of the Year right now, I would pick Angel Reese. I think this double-double frenzy that she's on and beating a WNBA record is insane. If I were to make a prediction for who it's going to be at the end of the year, I think it's going to be Caitlin Clark. When I think about the potential of the Indiana Fever and the potential of the Chicago Sky, and I might eat my words at the end of the season, I think the potential of the Indiana Fever is greater than the potential of the Chicago Sky. I feel like the Chicago Sky is playing in a way where I don't know if I'm going to see much change in the second half of the season. I feel like the way that Indiana Fever are playing right now, that they have the potential to become even better than they are now, which is why I'm so curious to watch the second half of the season. If you can get Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Alyssa Smith moving, which they are right now, I think they're going to be in the playoffs, and I think they could potentially do something. And I am not a Fever fan. Yeah. I really don't care about them.
Come on, Aaliyah Boston, you care about her.
I love Aaliyah Boston. I want her to do great, but Indiana don't have an attachment to the state. Don't think the mascot's very cool. I'm just not an Indiana Fever fan. But I think at the end of the season, I think Dawn Staley's right, because she is always right. And pause, if you have not watched or heard Dawn Staley's acceptance speech for the Perseverance Award at the ESPYs, turn off our podcast right now and go listen to it.
Finish the podcast, then go listen to it.
It is the most amazing speech I've heard in a really long time. The way that she connects with her players, the way she speaks about how she takes action because she knows her players are watching her and she holds them to such a high standard. It could make me cry. I love Dawn Staley. I think she is one of the best humans in the world.
I had a lot of chills listening to her speech, and there were so many times where I was like, mic drop. Mic drop, mic drop. So many points of that speech. She could just drop the mic right there and stop, and she kept going. So I agree. If you haven't heard it yet, go listen. But listen to our podcast first. The next thing I want to ask you, I think it's really important to talk about, okay, we talked about the rookies. They're all doing amazing. But to your point, we turn on the Indiana Fever and the only name you hear is Caitlin Clark. Well, I think it's important to talk about some of the players that came before Caitlin Clark. And yes, she might be right now currently ranked #1 in the rookies. But tell us a little bit about overall, when you look at the league as a whole, where do the rookies sit? So let's dive into that a little.
The rookies, like you said, the rookies are coming in and they're coming in hot. However, the WNBA is so good. So for some context, overall efficiency, we're talking about that stat efficiency again. Asia Wilson is at the top with a score of 34.3. So for context.
And Caitlin Clark is at 19.4. 34.3. That is a huge difference.
Yes. And Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, and Dearica Hamby round out the top 5. You don't find a rookie's name, which is Caitlin Clark's, until number 10, and Angel Reese is number 11.
Wow.
So 9 other people who are more efficient than our rookies. Let's talk about field goal percentage. Jonquel Jones right now is shooting 57.1% from field goal.
That's an incredible stat.
And she doesn't just shoot around the rim. She shoots from everywhere.
She shoots threes. She has such a nice shot. 57.1, that's an insane field goal percentage.
And again, for context, Caitlin Clark's field goal percentage is 40.3, Angel Reese 40.2. So 57%. Rounding out the top there, Tierra McGowan for the Dallas Wings, Brianna Jones from Connecticut Sun, Nneka Ogwumike from Seattle Storm, and Dearica Hamby from LA Sparks. Those are your top field goal percentage. If we keep going, you have Asia Wilson at 52.2% and Kennedy Carter at 51.3%. We're not even mentioning rookies' names here in field goal percentage. I say this all is that the rookies are exciting, yes. And there are so many great players in the WNBA that are playing so much better than the rookies, and as they should be, right?
Yeah, that's...
But I think some people came in watching the WNBA thinking that the rookies were going to dominate, and it's simply just not true. And we're going to have a rookie of the year. And just know that there are so many other players. Their stat lines are just totally insane. And if you were to compare them to a rookie, it would be, I mean, there would be no
night
conversation.
And day. Yeah,
exactly.
It's night and day. For good reason. These players are seasoned players. They're seasoned professionals. They are incredible players. I had a lot of fun diving into these stats and looking into it because we are avid watchers. And when you watch things, you can think certain things. But I think it's so important to sometimes just stop and take a look at the stats and truly get a sense of where everyone's at. So,
and not just hang around in the Instagram comments, which to say, I'm doing so much better not getting involved in the comments.
I've gotten better too, but I still do it sometimes. But I don't allow myself to stay in there for as long.
Yes. And on our TikTok, we've got some crazy commenters and we just don't get involved. And we're learning more and more now as we go through this that other people who comment kind of take care of the ridiculousness that is sometimes said.
Yeah, I get a kick out of it. So that's our way too early rookie predictions, and we are going to stick with the WNBA to talk about what we're looking forward to this week. So Carolyn, let's get started with that.
I am looking forward to the WNBA All-Star Game. It is this upcoming Saturday, July 20th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be held at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, where the Mercury play. It will be held on ABC. So the All-Star Game is set up a little bit differently this year. Usually the All-Star Game is the All-Stars from the Eastern Conference playing against the All-Stars from the Western Conference. But this year, it is All-Stars versus Team USA.
I love that. I think that's so cool because obviously Team USA is stacked with All-Stars. And now we can see everyone who did not make Team USA and see how they play. So
that's exactly right.
If Team USA loses, that's not going to be good.
But the thing is, they did this ahead of the Tokyo Olympics, and Team WNBA defeated Team USA.
That's crazy.
93-85. During that game, Arike Ogunbowale was playing for the All-Stars. She had 26 points, and they beat Team USA.
We've been saying, how did she not make the U.S. Olympic roster? Not surprised that Arike would do that.
So how is this 12-person roster chosen for the All-Star team? We've already talked about those who made the Olympic squad. 50% of the weight for the roster is based on fan voting, which we had a lot of.
Crazy.
50%. And then 25% the current players vote for their All-Stars and 25% a media vote. So think journalists, things like that.
So they're not using the efficiency stat.
No, they're not using the efficiency stat.
Damn.
This is based totally on subjective voting. Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Nafisa Collier, Kalia Copper, Dearica Hamby, Sabrina Ionescu, Arike Ogunbowale, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, and Jackie Young were the top 10.
My initial thoughts when I first see this is a great lineup. The first couple of people I'm thinking of, how are they not on this, are Jewel Lloyd from Seattle Storm. I'm like, where's her name? And again, a lot of these players, I'm like, okay, yes, they should be on. Jonquel Jones, where's she? Alyssa Thomas isn't on there. And I can say a lot more, but just off the top of my head, I'm like, whoa, where are they?
And you'll notice also in this that some of these players who were voted into the All-Star are also on Team USA.
That's why I'm confused.
Yes. So they do that because they want them to get the All-Star stat. So even though Kalia Copper is playing on Team USA, she was voted as an All-Star. So in years down the line, it'll say Kalia Copper, however many time All-Star.
Okay,
right?
that makes sense.
So,
that should be awarded.
Yes. Asia Wilson, however many time All-Star. So even though that they're playing for Team USA, they still can get voted to the All-Star team. But that means that this All-Star team needs to be filled in now. Many of the players we mentioned, Nafisa Collier, Kalia Copper, Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, Jackie Young, all play on Team USA. So we have to fill in for the All-Star team. Those who aren't on Team USA are Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Dearica Hamby, who's playing in the 3-on-3 but can still play in this game, and Arike Ogunbowale. They're not currently listed on the U.S. Women's National Team 5-on-5 roster, so they're automatically named to participate in the All-Star game and assigned to Team WNBA as a result of being in the top 10. To get the additional 8 players to make a 12-team roster, the next 36 highest vote getters were provided to 12 WNBA head coaches who then gave their votes on that pool of players to fill the remaining spots for Team WNBA.
I do like that they included the WNBA coaches.
Yeah, because they
that.
weren't mentioned.
Who knows better than them? So I do appreciate that they did that.
And they couldn't vote for members on their own team. That was,
and I think that's important too. Okay, that's good.
So then those 36 players get handed over to the 12 WNBA coaches, and then they picked the additional 8 players who are named to the WNBA All-Star team. Those players listed alphabetically are DeWanna Bonner from the Connecticut Sun, Alicia Gray from the Atlanta Dream, Brianna Jones from Connecticut, Jonquel Jones from the New York Liberty, Kayla McBride from the Minnesota Lynx, Kelsey Mitchell from the Indiana Fever, Nneka Ogwumike from the Seattle Storm, and Angel Reese from the Chicago Sky.
Well, it's going to be really fun to watch. I know in Denver, there's going to be some watch parties. I'm sure it will happen across the country. So this is a cool way to engage with other WNBA fans and Team USA and the All-Stars. It's kind of like the soccer friendlies, but in the same country, and everyone's just playing against each other. I love it. I'm pumped.
I know. It's going to be really fun to watch because this is honestly a warm-up game for Team USA, but you can tell that there's definitely some pride that's going to be on both sides, and both teams are going to want to come out and play and win. What are you looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to the U.S. Women's National Team friendly game. They play today, Tuesday, July 16th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern versus Costa Rica on True TV, TNT, Max, and Peacock. In the past friendly matchup, USA beat Mexico this past Saturday 1-0 with a goal scored from Sophia Smith.
It was a beautiful goal. Mal Swanson had the ball, delivered it over to Sophia Smith. She made a really quick move, got it in, and the U.S. won. Now, this is a roster that they're still trying to figure out, and they were making some changes throughout. Do we want to see the U.S. beat Mexico more than 1-0? Yes. Mm-hmm. Am I happy that it was just a win and we need to build this confidence and momentum and go headed into Paris? Also, yes.
A win is a win.
A win is a win. I think it was a great showing. We had a couple of friends who were at the game.
Yeah, so fun seeing their posts on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, I was so happy. We have friends, Matt and Kendra, who have a tiny little baby. He's about as old as our podcast. That's how we keep up with him. Yeah. And he was at the game with his little headphones on, and they got to watch it. I had a cousin at the game. It was really cool.
And another thing I'd like to highlight is Croy Bethune, rookie in the NWSL, got her first cap.
Which is great. And this is what Emma Hayes said that she was going to do. She was going to try to get some of the younger players who did not have caps, more caps, because the more caps you have on your team across the board usually results in the better that your team is. Croy Bethune is listed as an alternate on the Olympic spot roster. So just to get one game underneath her belt, to feel what it feels like to play in front of such a big stage, I think is really smart on Emma Hayes' part. And I also think this is just the start for Croy Bethune. We might not see her a ton in the Olympics. Who knows what may happen, but I think we are going to see her a lot more on the U.S. women's national team.
So that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.